Hello, welcome to English Tips by Sunshine English Academy. My name is Milind Deshpande. In this lesson, we are going to look at indirect speech. Now, what is indirect speech? Suppose there are two boys, Ajay and Raj, and Ajay asks Raj, "Are you going to Pune today?" And then, a few days later, Rita meets Raj and she asks him, "What did Ajay say?" So when Raj replies, he says, "Ajay asked me whether I was going to Pune that day." Now, Rita comes to know what Ajay said, not directly through Ajay, but indirectly through Raj. So, what Raj says is called indirect speech. This is also called reported speech because Raj is reporting to Rita what Ajay said. So Raj's words are known as reported speech. Now, when Raj tells Rita what Ajay said, he doesn't use the words spoken by Ajay. He tells Rita in his own words what Ajay said. So some of the words spoken by Ajay are changed. Raj does not say, "Ajay asked me, are you going to Pune?" He says, "Ajay asked me whether I was going to Pune that day." So he tells Rita what Ajay spoke in such a way that Rita would understand what really was spoken by Ajay. Now, when we change direct speech to indirect speech, there are mainly four things which change in the indirect speech. One is the tense, then the pronouns, then the adverbs of place and time, and possessive adjectives. Let's look at one example. The direct speech here is Rahul said, "I play in this club now." So when somebody else reports to another person what Rahul said, he has to say, "Rahul said that he played in that club then." So what are the changes? The pronoun I changes to he. The verb play, which is in the simple present tense, changes to played, which is in the simple past tense. Then the adverb of place, this club, changes to that club. And the adverb of time, now, changes to then. Now, let us see how the tenses change while converting direct speech to indirect speech. So, in the first table here, we can see that all present tenses change to past tenses. The simple present changes to simple past, present continuous to past continuous, present perfect to past perfect, present perfect continuous to past perfect continuous. Note that the simple part remains simple, continuous part remains continuous, perfect part remains perfect, and perfect continuous remains perfect continuous. When the direct speech is in past tense, then the simple past changes to past perfect, past continuous changes to past perfect continuous, past perfect remains the same, there is no change, and past perfect continuous also remains the same, and there is no change. In the future tense, we change only the modals. Will changes to would, can to could, and may to might. The words would, could, and might in the direct speech don't change while converting to indirect speech. Now let us see how questions in direct speech change in indirect speech. Now, first of all, when we convert a question spoken in direct speech to indirect speech, it no longer remains a question. It is converted into a statement in indirect speech. Now, the formats of questions and statements are different. In a statement, the subject comes first and then the helping verb followed by the main verb. But in a question, the helping verb comes first, then we have the subject and then the main verb. So while converting the direct speech to indirect speech, we have to switch the places of the helping verb and the subject. For example, Ajay asked Raj, "Are you going to Pune today?" This is the direct speech. Now, if a third person, Rita, tells a fourth person, Rahul, what Ajay said to Raj, she would have to say, Ajay asked Raj whether he was going to Pune that day. Now, R is the helping verb here and you is the subject. The helping verb is first and then the subject you. But in the indirect speech, the subject he, that is you, has changed to he here, R has changed to was here. The subject he comes before the helping verb was. So the positions of the helping verb and the subject have changed. Now there are two types of questions. There are yes or no questions, in which the answers to the questions are always yes or no. The yes or no questions always begin with helping verbs. And when converting these questions into indirect speech, we use the word whether in our sentence. So let's look at an example. Ajay asked Raj, "Are you going to Pune today?" So when Rita tells Rahul what Ajay said to Raj, she has to say, Ajay asked Raj whether he was going to Pune that day. She has to introduce the word whether in her speech. Then there are WH questions. These questions always begin with WH question words. And the answers to these questions cannot be yes or no. While converting these to indirect speech, we use the WH question word in the middle of our sentence. For example, Ajay asked the boy, "What is your name?" So in the indirect speech, we would say, Ajay asked the boy what his name was. So here the question word what comes in the middle of the sentence, and this is followed by the subject and then the verb. Now, here are some errors to avoid. The first one, Ajay asked the boy what was his name. Here, after what, the subject must come first and then the verb was. So it should be Ajay asked the boy what his name was. The second one, Ajay asked the boy that what his name was. Now, we never use asked and that together. The word that should not come after asked. So this statement is incorrect. It should be only Ajay asked the boy what his name was. Next one, Ajay asked the boy, "What is your name?" Now, this what is your name part is actually direct speech. We can't use this in indirect speech, and we can never have the present tense is in the indirect speech, and your has to change to his. So the sentence has to be Ajay asked the boy what his name was. And the next one, Ajay asked the boy that what is his name. Again here, remove that and change is to was, and the correct sentence should be Ajay asked the boy what his name was. Now here's an exercise for you. Pause your video here and work out the answers. And once you have done that, then continue with the video to get your answers. So pause now. So let us see how we can change these to indirect speech. The first one, Rahul asked Sonali, will you have coffee? This is simple future tense. To change this to indirect speech, we need to change will to would. So our statement would be Rahul asked Sonali whether she would have coffee. Please note that the question, will you have coffee, is a yes or no question. So we used whether in the indirect speech. The second one, Rahul asked Ajay, has the train arrived? Now, has the train arrived is present perfect tense. So we have to change this to past perfect, and the subject, the train, must come before the helping verb has. So our statement would be Rahul asked Ajay whether the train had arrived. Has the train arrived is also a yes or no question. So we use the word whether here too. Next one, Sonali asked Ajay, did you see this movie? This is again a yes or no question, and this is in the simple present tense. So when we change to indirect speech, it will be Sonali asked Ajay whether she saw that movie. The helping verb did is omitted in the indirect speech. Next one, Ajay asked Raj, where is your book? This is not a yes or no question. So when changing to indirect speech, it will be like this. Ajay asked Raj where his book was. The subject, your book, changes to his book and it comes before the verb was in the indirect speech. Next one, Raj asked Rahul, when will you bring the money? Now here, will is the helping verb and it is followed by the subject, you. So these must switch places when we change to indirect speech. So our indirect speech will be Raj asked Rahul when he would bring the money. So here are all the answers for you. That is the end of our lesson. Hope you liked it. Kindly like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.